Okay, we're recording. Hi, everybody. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm going to be showing y'all how to make bread dough today. And since we're in the context that we're in, I'm going to start by ceremoniously washing my hands. And you guys can watch me do that. This is my sink.
Dylan, are you just pivoting around your computer right now?
I physically moved my computer. It's on my counter right now, and I'm gonna be kind of like moving it to different places as I go through. So yeah, I'm gonna be interacting with it as I go. For those of you who may be watching in the future, if I share this with you, these are my coworkers, and I'm doing this as a test to like try out making instructional content for my job. So these are the people. So
Hi, people.
Say hi to the people.
Hello.
Hi, people.
So I'm gonna dry my hands off, wash very thoroughly. I've already sort of prepped my area, but that's a really important step to take when you're doing this. Oh, but one more thing. So I learned how to make bread from this book. It's called Dough by Richard Burtonette. And so this is where I learned this from. I think, just to like demystify the process of making bread. When I tell people that I make my own bread, sometimes they're like, holy shit, you make your own bread? That's crazy. It's not that crazy. Part of the reason why I want to share this too with other people outside of my coworkers who are watching right now is that I have a friend, Julia, who is like, will you make me a loaf of bread? Like, I can't find bread at the store. I know you make bread, right? So hopefully this will make it easier for people who are interested in eating bread and can't find it right now. It was super easy for me to find flour. So
the grocery store was sold out of flour.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Hey, check that out. Well, I hope you can find flour. So yeah, if you can get a book right now, this is a good book to reference, in my opinion. And so I prepped my area. I have some things that I know that I'm going to need. And this is a lot like, for example, plaster. Mixing plaster, you want to have all of your supplies ready before you start. You don't want to be like grabbing things in the middle of the process, and that can kind of set you off course, right? So we have a bag of flour. This is bread flour. You could probably also use all-purpose flour or other kinds of flour. This is just what I happen to use. And it has something to do, I think, with the protein content in the flour, which is why it's bread flour. I think it's also grown in a different season. I don't know all the details on that. And I have some active dry yeast. You can get these in individual packets, or you can get it in a jar. LB's got the hookup too. So we're going to be doing like the...
Can I ask a question about active dry yeast?
Yes.
I typically refrigerate mine. Is that important?
I think it's important to like keep it from going bad. I know on this container it says keep refrigerated after opening. So I think if it's in a packet or a sealed jar, you don't have to worry about that. But once you open it, you should refrigerate it. Right, we're using like industrially produced yeast right now. You can also make sourdough. I have my sourdough starter right here, which is what I usually use. But this is a little bit more involved of a process. So like once you kind of get the industrial or like half removed industrial way of making bread, then you can move on to sourdough, which maybe I'll do a video on at some other point. But this is what I prefer. I've also got olive oil. I'm going to be putting some olive oil in this. It makes the dough a little bit stretchier and also imbues the dough with a little bit of the flavor of the olive oil. I like to use this because this recipe that I'm using to make like a loaf of bread, I'm also, if I add olive oil, it's also really good for pizza dough. So basically, if you follow this same recipe and split up the batch of dough that you make into 3 even sections, each one of those will make a pizza. So I've got those. I've also got salt. Want it to be salty, it tastes nice. And then I've got my measuring devices. So I've got this for my water. It's a graduated cylinder, again, just like mixing plaster. I've got measuring cups. I've got these measuring cups too for my smaller portions. I've got a big bowl for mixing in and letting the dough rise in later. And then I've got a surface to put my bread on when I put it in the oven and allow it to rise, okay? Those are gonna be different surfaces if you want them to. I generally like to use a stone in the oven, but my stone is broken right now. I realize not everybody has one. As long as you have some kind of like oven safe platform to put your bread on, nice LB. It can be like a different shape or a different material. Doesn't really matter. Cool. So just trying to think if there's anything else I want to say. Oh, I also have my apron on. It does get dusty and messy. I got my hair up because I don't want it to get in the bread. I'm also going to be giving this bread to Julia, who I mentioned earlier, so I don't want to get my hair in Julia's bread. And anything else? I guess I just want to say a couple things like this is really nice because it's a way of getting a little bit further away from, I'm getting notifications, getting a little bit further away from like relying on other people to make things for you, right? We say they all the time, like they're coming out with a new blah, blah, blah. They made a blah, 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 right? Which is like this state of being alienated from the means of production, right? Which we still are, right? I didn't grow this flour and grind it up and mill it, but it's a little bit closer, right? It's creating a relationship with the material that you're using that's closer than just like grabbing a loaf of bread out of a bag and shoving it in your mouth, right? So that's one of the reasons why I'm into it. I also think it's a good time to, as artists and creative people, right, to give some time to non-art materials and think about their meaning and their place in our lives. So for me, again, when I'm making bread, I'm thinking about not a loaf of bread as like a thing and a commodity, but as like its separate parts, that it's made from plants and water. Where do those things come from? And I don't really subscribe to the like art as an elevated space, right? Like people say like, oh, elevating it by making it art. I don't think that's true. But I think that giving things, right, when we're looking at art, we're paying attention to it, right? We're giving it attention and focus and thought and critique, right? So we can do that. We can enact that same exercise with things, with other things in the world besides art, right? So